At this time, we can start with a roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Here.
Councilmember Truby,
Here.
Mayor Quintanilla,
Here.
all councils present.
Thank you. We now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand if you are able. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we move on to this week's inspiration, I would like to offer the sympathy from the community that we've held from our committee members, our commissioners, and everyone that sends you their appreciation and their love in this difficult time. And we've learned of the services, and we will join you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This council meeting's inspiration will be by Councilmember Kelly.
And this evening, we really must draw our inspiration from the life of Brian Nastandi. It was quite compelling to read the accolades after his passing. Well, he was a very active and loyal member of one political party. He was commended time and again by people from both sides of the aisle for his spirit of collaboration and for always putting the collective interests of the people he represented first. And it was noteworthy that there were recurring compliments for his preoccupation with digging into the details and the facts as what should drive outcomes, not presuppositions, not the ideologies, but the facts and the details. It's hugely sad that we've lost him at such a young age, and it's sad that he didn't get to read all of those accolades. But I certainly hope we can take inspiration from them to remember always what we share as fellow travelers in the human condition, and to let what we share govern our behavior rather than our differences. And of course, most relevantly here, we all share a deep love for this city and a deep desire for the city and all of its residents to thrive. So I encourage us in Brian's memory to keep those shared values at the forefront of our process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Kelly. Do we have a report from closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. There's no reportable action to report this afternoon.
We now move on to item 9, awards, presentations, and appointments. Who will be presenting the Visit Greater Palm Springs update?
Mr. Scott White.
Good afternoon. That was a fast start for us. And on behalf of the tourism industry, we also want to send our deepest sympathies and condolences. Brian was a great man, and we always enjoyed working with him, so he'll be deeply missed. With us tonight, I also have my Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, Colleen Pace, and Davis Meyer, our newly appointed Vice President of Government Industry Relations. They're going to help us with this presentation today. And we're going to try to take about an hour's worth of our presentation and boil it down to about 10 minutes. So we're going to do the best we can to get through that with you today. One of the things that we do, oops, go back one, is we do an economic impact study every year. And we're in the midst of doing a study for 2023. As you can see from the slide that in 2022, we certainly went and exceeded back to the 2019, which was the initial record year for the industry. The only area that we were still lagging in 22 were the jobs associated with the tourism industry. But I can tell you, based on the numbers that I've seen for 2023, we're going to far exceed 2022. So I think 23 will be a record year going forward. The next slide shows that we're primarily funded by a tourism business improvement district, which is 3% assessment on hotels of 50 rooms or more and 1% assessment on vacation rentals. And then you can see kind of the breakdown of the JPA, which is 8% and then 11% from funded. For the city of Palm Desert, you represent 16.8% of the overall JPA and 1.3% of our overall funding. Every year, the board works with the JPA to kind of establish our priorities for the coming year. There are fundamental components that we work on, which is leisure marketing, attracting new meetings, convention and events. We're certainly trying to work on demand periods like summer, shoulder periods, events in the fall, midweek during the Coachella festivals, and so forth. We're also constantly developing research. We measure every ad campaign that we do, and we certainly always are looking for best practices that ensure that everything that we're doing is fully maximized and efficient along the way. When the vacation rentals became part of the TBID, our number one priority there was to educate the community and the homeowners about being good stewards, being good neighbors, being good operators, and developing best practices. You're going to learn a little bit more about that from Davis here in a few minutes. Air service development, I'll talk about that as well. DEI, sustainability, accessibility, and cultural heritage. That continues to grow and expand within our organization. Workforce development, that's probably new in the last 2 years as well, so you'll learn about that. And then tonight, you're going to have the JPA agreement, which I'll talk about, which is to take on the responsibility of diversifying the regional economy for the destination from a recruitment standpoint. And then advocacy, we went through an RFP process, and we are retaining in the process of finalizing an agreement with Capital Advocacy. So economic diversity, as you know, that we have the JPA agreement in front of you. That is to add the city of Coachella and also to change and update the language that allows us to embark on going out and developing a campaign, branding, and communications message to really position the Coachella Valley as a prime location for businesses to either relocate or start or grow their business within the community. We're excited to do that, knowing that that is on the horizon. We're in the process of finalizing an agreement with a company that specializes in a communication strategy and website for economic development. So we'll hopefully have that finalized in the next week or two. We've promoted Davis, as I talked about, and then we've also hired Sean Smith to be our Director of Economic Development, really be a liaison with all of the cities and make sure we're coordinating effectively and hearing from you and listening to you as far as what your priorities are and making sure that the oversight from the JPA is being embarked on in a timely manner. We're also working on a strategic plan. We're in conversations with Riverside County. They're embarking on a potential strategic plan. We're going to see if we can carve out a specific one for the Coachella Valley as we move forward. Air service development. One of the key areas that we work on is the airport is a little bit restricted on what they can do based on their restrictions from the FAA. So each year we go out and talk to the airlines. We have a company called Avion Pacific and Gary Orfield in our office that attends conferences, works with the airlines. We're constantly trying to kind of shorten the summer season, get year-round service, extend the high season or extend the shoulder seasons to really constantly improve service into the destination, work for hub markets as well. And looking at new markets. So we have New York City this year. The Alaska Airlines added from JFK. That complements JetBlue. As you know, JetBlue is a red eye going back to New York. For some of those, that's not appealing. The Alaska flight is now daily, and it goes daytime both directions. And we're also trying to work on new service to the East Coast. We were able to get Atlanta back with Delta this past year and continue to grow the hubs for American, United, and Southwest. We've had some pretty good success over the years. For the last 10 years, we've been able to, working again closely with the airport, to double the number of passengers coming into the destination and also the number of seats. And so with that comes the challenge of the airport. If anybody's been to the airport lately, it is pretty crazy over there. So the airport is going through an expansion plan. We're working with them, and one of the things that we want to do is to work on an FIS facility to add expansion to the adding international to the components of that. So we want to get Mexico, destinations in Canada that don't have pre-clearance, and eventually European service as well. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about convention sales. That is really kind of the bread and butter of the organization. We have a sales team with sales managers based not only here locally, but also in the East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast as well. As you can see from the stats here for Palm Desert, we sent 1,126 leads to the Palm Desert hotels, which represented 52 bookings, 42,000 room nights, and supported over 24,000 jobs. Generated a little over $1 million in economic impacts. I think that's a pretty good return on the JP investment to the organization, which represented $43 million for the economy. And as I talked about earlier, one of the need periods that we talk about is early January, the summer, the fall, and so forth. And we're tracking that. And so as you can see from this slide, in 2022, we booked almost 8,000 rooms into those need periods for Palm Desert, 23, 4,500 room nights almost. And then this year so far, over 12,000. So again, we know the hotels do really well on the weekends. So we're trying to move that business to midweek and to the off periods as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Colleen to talk a little bit about leisure marketing.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Scott. I'm going to talk a little bit about destination marketing, which encompasses advertising, brand development, website development, social media, content, public relations, and communications. And we do that all through highlighting our unique destination pillars, which you can see here on the screen: health and wellness, outdoor experiences, arts and entertainment, dining and shopping, cultural heritage, and LGBTQ+. A few highlights from 2023. We had 25 billion total generated impressions across various platforms, including digital advertising, almost 2 million television spots that run in both our fly and drive markets, over 9 million views on social media, 3.3 million sessions on our website, which converted 630 partner referrals from our website. We also launched our first direct-to-consumer international campaign in the UK and Ireland, and that garnered us almost 49 million impressions, 276,000 clicks to our website. We utilize that through various platforms and optimize that campaign for results, for awareness and inspiration. This year, we're evolving that to pull them closer to the funnel and purchase and intention. So we're excited to have our second year of our international campaign. We also do co-ops with Visit California and Brand USA and other countries such as Australia, Canada, Germany, to help really highlight our destination to the international market. We also have representation throughout the world. You can see here some of the full-time representation, as well as some of the project-based representation we have globally throughout the world, as well as our United States rep, which is NJF or MMGY. For our co-op programs, we run these year-round. We have a variety of co-op programs available, including digital, billboard, and TV. We had 19 partners in 2023, 7.2 billion impressions. You can see here that garnered 116 television spots. We had great participation from the Palm Desert property, including the JW and the Living Desert, which I'll show in just a few more slides. We also do a lot of event support. Here are some examples of the event support that we have for Palm Desert festivities. You can see here Fashion Week coming up, which we're excited about, the Glow Park. And then we also highlight this in our content, blog content, as well as social media posts and ads that we run. Summertime is something we prioritize in terms of our media plan. So we run our program from May through August on all of a multimedia platform, including TV, digital, social media, content, streaming radio. We also do following Restaurant Week, which is a really great campaign that we run. We also launch into the Summer Eats Pass, again, to promote our local restaurants during the summertime. Sorry, that played quicker than I thought it would. So these next two spots are the JW and the Living Desert. So these are part of the summer co-op program that we did for 2023. Over the past 2 weeks, we just shot new footage for our upcoming summer campaign. So we were again at the JW and the Living Desert. So these are from 2023. Yes, if you don't mind, thank you. the last video I'm going to share is from our social media campaign that we run through the summer. So it's really a montage of all of the unique experiences that you can have in the summer. I think sometimes people think there aren't a lot of things to do in the summer. So we really try to promote all of the fun and unique things you can enjoy in the summer here in Greater Palm Springs.
This life is a daydream. Our time is a precious thing. We're searching for meaning in the highs and the lows we've seen. When all is said and done, standing on the bright side, can't believe how far we've come. We've only just begun. See the world through new eyes, taking us to great heights. Anything is possible, everything is new, and we'll carry each other, running wild into the night, technicolor blue, and we'll carry each other.
And this program was very successful. It had almost 500,000 views and 12,000 engagements, and we gained over 2,000 new followers as a result. For 2024, our campaign is currently running on a variety of different platforms. Here are some examples of all the media partners that we work with on a daily basis to support our campaign. We also have the example creative of what we are running for our winter campaign. You can see here some digital ads and some billboards. And exciting for next year, we have a new campaign that we're developing. We'll be producing it at the end of April. And we did some research. Everything we do, we found in research. So we had 3 concepts and we went out to consumers and asked what most resonated with our consumer base. And concept 1 or 3 was a clear winner. And so we're in the process of developing a new campaign that'll launch this coming fall in 2024. So we're excited about sharing that when we have more information. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Davis.
All right, so as Scott mentioned, we started working with our short-term vacation rental stakeholders when they joined our Tourism Business Improvement District in 2001 on resources and education, as well as promotion. One of the initiatives that we launched this year is a local campaign that helps to educate residents in the community about the benefits of short-term vacation rentals and the important role that well-regulated vacation rentals do play in our community, as well as share resources. All of our cities require that vacation rentals have permits and follow regulations and have enforcement guidelines. And we want to make sure there's good neighbor hotlines available to residents on those websites as well. This is a website. There's a digital marketing campaign. You'll start seeing ads running in English and Spanish for this, as well as activations out in the community. We were out at the Wildflower Festival a couple weekends ago with our very popular blue totes. Another element of this is our hosting essentials webinars. We partnered with a national organization called Rent Responsibly on webinars that help hosts become better hosts, understand the regulations in their communities, how to follow those regulations, how to comply, as well as how to get 5-star guest reviews while doing that, because we want happy guests, happy neighbors, and just balance in our communities. One of the webinars that was really popular was a getting to know your neighbors session for short-term rental hosts about really the importance of getting to know the neighbors in your community where you have a short-term rental. We also did a voter survey in September of last year, looking at resident sentiment around short-term rentals in the Coachella Valley and in each of our cities. 72% of voters reported feeling favorably, somewhat or very favorably about short-term rentals in their city. For Palm Desert, it was 74%. And that number increases even more if we're able to connect the revenues from short-term rentals back to some of the issues that voters care most about: fixing homelessness, protecting our communities, affordable housing, and reducing the cost of living. So that was insightful direction for us. And of course, we are promoting our well-regulated and responsible operators through a variety of marketing channels. They're incorporated into all of our regular content marketing, but there are specific programs for short-term rentals as well, especially on those platforms that really target short-term rental visitors. And a great example of that was our Vrbo summer campaign. We did a really engaging and fun pool floaty persona campaign with Vrbo over the summer. It was very successful, had about 17.5 million in bookings for the destination overall, and for vacation rentals in the city of Palm Desert, about 1 million in gross bookings and 3,000 room nights. So we'll be working with Vrbo again, I think this summer on a different campaign, but something engaging and fun for short-term rental visitors. Workforce development. We really started, after the pandemic, engaging in workforce development, developing our hospitality workforce, sort of, generating that next future hospitality leader here in the Coachella Valley, and sharing the different opportunities that exist within hospitality. We have a number of great partners in that. We've, been working with the colleges, the school districts. Desert Sands has been a great partner. And then developed a number of programs through our Teen GPS Ambassador program, as well as worked with Caravanserai, which was a program aimed at small business entrepreneurs, connecting them with businesses in the hospitality space. We'll continue to work with them this year. Autism certification is another initiative really aimed at elevating our workforce, as well as reaching new audiences and becoming a more inclusive destination. And really hats off. Thank you so much to the City of Palm Desert for your partnership in this, for becoming a certified autism center here, as well as the Living Desert Zoo and the JW Marriott, two of our biggest visitor attractions, becoming certified in the City of Palm Desert as well. It's just been great to see, great momentum, and we'll continue this, working toward getting our certified autism destination status this year. Another great example of the workforce development campaigns that we have is a partnership with College of the Desert. It's an Emerging Leaders Certificate program. It's a 6-part course that is really aimed at getting those hospitality workers who are making the steps into their first roles in supervisory positions or leadership positions, to give them the skills and the knowledge that they need to take on those roles. We've had about 98 participants go through so far. We do offer scholarships for this. We've had about 20 from the JW Marriott that have gone through this. It's been a great program. We've gotten really great feedback, so we'll continue that into this year as well. And then hiking maps. This is a partnership that we did with Friends of the Desert Mountains and the Coachella Valley Mountains Conservancy, really doing engaging and detailed hiking maps for each of the regions of our valley, and including lots of great information in there and hiking safety tips as well. And I'll invite Scott back up.
Thank you, Davis. And that's just a little bit of a snapshot of things that we're working on. I think in your appendix, there's a lot more slides and information. You also have access to the city dashboard, which has all of the other data that's being updated on a regular basis. So with that, I'll stop, answer any questions, and let you proceed with your evening. Hopefully that was beneficial.
Quick question. I noticed that the list of international PR connections didn't include any countries in this hemisphere. And I was wondering if there was a reason for that. I was thinking in particular about articles I've seen recently discussing an upsurge in visits, even from Eastern Canada to the Coachella Valley, because some travelers are disfavoring locations they previously visited, such as Florida. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we do have NJF that handles North America for us. So they're our extension, but we also have our staff as well. With having Canada so close, we go up there on PR missions all the time. We partner with Visit California. So between our organization, Visit California, and NJF, we have that covered. Mexico, we also do work with Visit California's firm out of Mexico. We do ad hoc, so FAMs and press trips and so forth. So we do that as well into those markets. And the other markets, since they're so far away, what that does is it allows us to, they can represent us to educate the travel agents and tour operators without us having to fly across the pond every single time to do that. So Canada's a little bit easier to get to. We have good service flights to get there, a little bit more cost effective. You're welcome.
And Scott, you mentioned the FAA in the airport. Are they giving you any hurdles that you have to jump over, or because you had mentioned the FAA is that
No,
might be an issue?
Yeah, the challenge is the FAA regulates how the airport can do incentives, whereas we can do minimum revenue guarantees. We can do distinct agreements with each airline that are unique to that airline, whereas the airport couldn't do that. So whatever the airport offers as an incentive has to be available to all the airlines. So for example, if we want to go after service to Washington, D.C., and the airline says, great, we would love to offer service between Washington, D.C. and Palm Springs, we're probably going to need a minimum revenue guarantee, meaning if the flight does not perform at the level they want it to, they need somebody to be able to bridge that gap in revenue. And so we can do that. We set aside funds specifically for air service development. Historically in the past, we've been very fortunate. Those revenue guarantees, the flights have done very well. We haven't had to pay anything, but the airlines want that as a backdrop, or the airlines want a dedicated marketing source. JetBlue is a good example. When they started with us, 7, 8 years ago now, they wanted a dedication of about $500,000 in market in New York. They wanted to know that we could actually promote the flight and help them support that flight. And now that it's up and running, we still obviously market New York and we market JetBlue, but now we're marketing Alaska as well. So that's the big difference.
I would like to first congratulate Davis for your new position and all that you do. You've always been so active in so many places in the community, and this seems like a great next step to advocate. I was wondering if I could maybe even have a separate meeting with you regarding the autism certification as a way to support local business. I've had conversations briefly with Governor Newsom when he was in town, with Senator Steve Padilla, and with Congressman Ruiz, and said, there has to be money somewhere. Find a big couch, look for some deep cushions, and see how we can subsidize some of these small businesses that would like that certification. It could be a way to distinguish a small business from a larger chain and ensuring that they get the level of service that their families deserve. So I'd like to see if there's any of that information or data to move forward with a greater ask. So
Absolutely. We'd welcome that. Thank you very much.
thank you. And thank you for being such excellent partners and giving Palm Desert specific data. It helps a lot.
And we do have our Tourism Foundation Golf Tournament at the JW at the end of April, which is a fundraiser for the foundation. And that foundation does help provide grants for autism certification, the PACE program, and other programs as well. So hopefully we'll maybe see a foursome from the city of Palm Desert play in the golf tournament. That's a possible.
Wonderful. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you so much for your presentation. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
We also have a presentation for Celebrate CV. Who will be giving that presentation?
Hello, my name is Nathan Truesdale. I work for Local IQ, and I represent the USA Today Network as well as the Desert Sun and Desert Magazine. Today, I want to present to you a generic recap, and then we'll go a little more in depth to our Celebrate CV event that we hosted. Together, Local IQ with our partners over at Poshel hosted the second annual Celebrate CV event on December 30th of last year. This year, it was hosted here in the Palm Desert Civic Center Park. The headliner artist for this year was Lauren Elena of American Idol. While the purpose of Celebrate CV is really to bring the Coachella Valley together as a whole and create a sense of community, it also helps to showcase local talented artists and many of our incredible organizations from here within Coachella Valley. Celebrate CV this year was free to the public thanks to the generosity of the city of Palm Desert, as well as the city of Cathedral City. So Lauren Elena was a major draw for our audience. We had people from all over the valley as well as the outlying commuter markets come in for the event. We did have several thousand in attendance, which was a scale and a growth from last year when we hosted on El Paseo. Here you'll see some of the photographs of the event. This year we expanded upon not only the area of the event, but also on the offerings. The timing of Celebrate CV heightened the relevancy of our purpose this year. Given the challenges that we faced together as a region last year with Hurricane Hillary, we learned that we can come together as a community, and when we do, we are exceptional. Our event was able to build upon that momentum and bring cities together with representatives from 3 different municipalities. This year's benefits were donated to the YMCA of the desert. Some of the local talent that we showcased this year included performances by a combined high school marching band from Rancho Mirage, Coachella, as well as Desert Hot Springs. We were also able to showcase artists such as Turn the Page, Austin J, the Jordan Sherman Band, and also the Nickerson Rossi Dance Studio. Additionally, we recognize the Desert Sun's High School Athletes of the Week from our fall season. We also recognize organizations as such as Do the Right Thing and First Tee Youth Golf Program. This year, we learned one thing, that the Kids Zone was wildly popular. It was packed from the beginning to the end. Even as the event went late and it was very cold, the families were not deterred. Particularly popular was the parents versus the kids dodgeball sessions, which we didn't think they would ever end. A few things that we did learn, a few takeaways from the second event. Local families respond to an outdoor event where we're able to showcase Palm Desert as a one-stop shop for safe family fun. The event was successful in attracting families from all over the valley. I personally talked to people from Indio, as well as the High Desert and Palm Springs. The Kids Zone, as I mentioned, was packed from beginning to end. December nights are very cold, so we have a few learnings that we're taking away from this as we look towards the future. So one thing that we anticipate is the event will continue to scale. So year-over-year growth of attendance and participation from the local business community is so important to us. We're going to add more Kids Zone and steer more towards youth activities. We're also opening to shift the event month by month to a better season and earlier in the day to reduce ambient noise. Here are some of the photographs from the event. The local talent really impressed. A lot of the artists here, you'll see one of our bands actually interacting with the audience. They came off stage. It was a major hit. This is some of the offerings that we had in our Kids Zone. A 70-foot gaming truck, which was wildly popular with teenagers. We had the 30-yard golf shot, which was popular. And as I mentioned before, the dodgeball was a huge hit. These are some of the sponsors and media partners that we utilize to really express the event within the Valley and to make sure that everyone knew that it was open and available to them and their families. Additionally, looking forward to the future, we do anticipate more municipalities becoming involved. We're currently in talks with 5 different cities that want to participate upcoming in this year. And we're looking to continue to increase the regional support for this as we grow. A major thank you to our sponsors. You'll see them here. Also to the City of Palm Desert for making the event possible. I'd also like to say thank you to the Sheriff's Department for making this the safest event in the city, in the region. That concludes my presentation. And at this time, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have about the event.
No questions, only gratitude for bringing family-friendly activities. I didn't have the chance to attend, but I did hear a lot of wonderful things about it. So thank you for coming by and giving us the updates. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. The one thing I did neglect to mention was we did see, in addition to that, obviously support financially as well as awareness to the local business community. We did host 10 local restaurants and food trucks that saw a 300% increase year over year in orders and revenue that they were able to produce from the event. So that's crucial to our success because we want to continue investing in the local community. So you'll see us continue to do that as we move forward for this year's planning.
Absolutely. Got to support local. Thanks
Thank you
again.
for your time.
After presentations, we move on to item 10, city manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite Lieutenant Forrest up to provide a brief update of activities with the Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Unfortunately, on Tuesday night, we did have a fatality that was at Cook and Country Club involving a bicyclist. Although our traffic team is investigating it, I want to remind everybody, if you're bicycling at night, please ensure that you have a helmet on, your lights are on, and you follow the rules of the road. So, and moving on, I wanted to highlight a program called the Blue Envelope Program. It's something that the department started last year to serve our communities. And I have a video here to show you how it is best interaction is with our staff and our community. Go ahead.
You're the new MC, you got the remix. Keep it on repeat, just let the beat kick. Everywhere you go, you bring the roof down. Everybody knows you got your own sound. So good, so fresh, just the way you like it.
Hello, sir. My name is Deputy Scott with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. The reason I pulled you over is because you failed to stop at a stop sign on Blossom and Sumner over there. Is there any legal justification for not stopping? Okay. Do you have your license and registration?
I have a blue envelope.
Okay. Can I see it?
Can I reach for it?
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. As we continue to partner with our special needs community and strive for excellence, we have adopted the Blue Envelope program. This program is free to the public. If you are not already aware, this program assists drivers with special needs should they ever be in a position to interact with law enforcement. The envelope is meant to hold a copy of the driver's license, auto registration, and proof of auto insurance. It also has handwritten recommendations to the deputy about the driver's special needs, as well as suggestions to the driver about how to interact with a deputy during a traffic enforcement stop or other law enforcement encounter.
Okay, Chris. Is there any legal justification you have for not stopping at a stop sign? Do you understand that it's a violation to not stop at a stop sign? You do understand it? Okay. Looks like all your documents are in order, so give me a second. Don't leave, okay? I'm going to step back to my car and I'll be right back. Okay, thank you.
The blue envelope outlines the procedures of a traffic stop and explains when a deputy walks back to their patrol car, the driver is to remain in their vehicle until the deputy returns. When the deputy has completed the traffic stop, the driver will be told they are free to leave.
Okay, Chris. Though it is a violation not to stop at a stop sign, I'm just going to give you a warning, okay? I'm going to give this back to you. All right? Make sure you just pay attention to your surroundings, drive safely, and pull back into traffic. Thank you. All right, drive safely.
You may pick up a blue envelope free of charge at your local Riverside County Sheriff's Station during normal business hours. As we continue our community outreach, we thank you for taking the time to watch this video.
So working with Jason Austin, these envelopes are here available at the city, over administrative businesses or buildings, sorry. And then obviously at our sheriff department. So we're trying to expand it, make sure that the community is aware. And also we've been working with their COPs to get that word out there for you. Anybody have any questions on that?
I have one comment. I'm maybe overstepping my bounds just a little, but wouldn't that be a great presentation to have at Visit Greater Palm Springs?
Definitely. We can coordinate that. So next.
Oh, sorry. You
ahead.
need to share more?
Yes, I do. So going on February 23rd, we had a DUI checkpoint. We had over 1,075 cars go through the checkpoint here in Portola and Fred Waring. We had 3 arrests for DUI and we had over 32 citations. And this checkpoint was funded by the California Office of Traffic Safety. So putting our OTS grant money to work. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that with all the great things that they mentioned comes traffic. Okay, so please give yourself an opportunity to give yourself time to travel through Palm Desert as you go to attend to all these great events and just be patient with all the people out there. Right. Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you. We had a chance to mention or have a chat on the Blue Envelope program. Evan and I actually, when we attended the Cove Public Safety Committees, and I took some of those envelopes with me to Leadership Coachella Valley, hoping that I would share it with my peers, but I ended up giving that to our Border Patrol agents that did a presentation. they hadn't heard of it, and I shared how great this program was in innovation, and to say, you need to know as well that people in our county may have these envelopes that they're presenting. And they were really excited to see that these were accommodations that were in place, especially as we are advocating for drivers with special needs. To say someone fidgeting doesn't mean that they're guilty. Someone that's not making eye contact, it means that they're guilty. So great work, great work. And thank you for being such great community partners.
Thank you very much.
Any
I'd like
other
to
presentations?
ask Amy Lawrence to provide council and the public with a recap of the party in the park.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm here today to provide you a recap on the Palm Desert's 50th anniversary celebration, the Party in the Park. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Can you pass to the next slide, please? So the event was held on November 18th, 2023 at the Palm Desert Civic Center Park from 3 to 10 p.m. The city contracted with Palm Springs Life to produce the event, which welcomed over 5,000 attendees to the park that day to celebrate the city's golden anniversary. Next slide. Great picture. And next slide. Feedback from both event participants and attendees was very positive, with some saying that this was the most exciting event that they've ever attended at the Civic Center Park. Next slide. Another great picture. And next slide. Some of the event highlights included 15 live performances, 3 art installations, 13 Best of Palm Desert informational booths, 12 Kid Zone activations, 7 Taste of Palm Desert restaurant participants, 11 food trucks, and 2 beer and wine gardens. And last but not least, there was the amazing Palm Desert Historic Timeline and interactive Tailboard project. And next, and these next few slides will touch on the media and marketing promotional value for the event. According to Palm Springs Life, the media and marketing coverage value totaled just over $151,000 and resulted in over 1.5 million impressions. You can skip through just a few of these slides. And then here we are at sponsors and partners, and that next slide here. Palm Springs Life was able to secure several sponsors for the event, including presenting sponsor El Paseo Jewelers. And then moving on to the next, these are some event photos. Scrolling through here. And then in closing, I'd just like to thank Palm Springs Life, especially organizer Kim Crandall, for all that they did to make this an unforgettable event for the city. I'd also like to thank Shelby Goodwin, city staff members Shelby Goodwin and Brad Chuck, and everyone else that assisted for their boundless dedication in ensuring the event's success. You've been provided with a copy of this presentation, along with Palm Springs Life's event budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And we also have Frank Jones with Palm Springs Life available as well.
Well, without questions or comments, I guess that means that we were all very satisfied and enjoyed participating in the event. And thank you to all those that participated in this landmark event. This will set the bar pretty high. Thanks again.
And we have one additional item, Mayor, with, I'm going to ask Mr. Chavez to bring council up to speed on the new council member plaques. So turn it over to Randy.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members. The city recently completed the installation of a recognition plaque for all formal city council members. It's located directly across from me in the northwest corner of the lobby here. The plaque includes the name of all former city council and their years of service. And we also have included a QR code that can be accessed via cell phone that includes a photo of each council member and key leadership roles each played in our regional agencies. And this was an interdepartmental project, and we'd like to thank Melanie Perry from Public Works, Rylan Penta and Public Affairs, and Gloria Sanchez in our city clerk's office. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, City Manager, Mr. Heilman. We will now move along to number 11, Mayor Council Member reports and requests for action. We'll start over here with Mr. Truby. Thank you, Council Member.
Actually, I'm just gonna say no comment, nothing major to report this period. Thank you.
That's exciting, Council Member Kelly. We do have a section for public comments right now. This part of the agenda, we are addressing what the council members would like to ask and request. Have you filled out one of the blue cards for public comment? Is someone available to bring her card, Anthony? They'll be giving you one of the blue cards. Thank you. Councilmember Kelly?
Nothing to share this evening.
Councilwoman Estande?
And the same here. I just appreciate the sentiments everyone shared already with me. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I have lots. I did want to mention that yesterday at Riverside County Transportation Commission, as we began on the Tier 2 environmental impact report and environmental impact study for the Coachella Valley line, the train, we approved the reimbursement agreement between Union Pacific and RCTC to begin the preliminary engineering services for CV Rail. So that's one more little marker. We're moving in the right direction on that. I did have the pleasure of going to Esri in Redlands. They're the people who make maps. It's language through maps and speaking information, finding information through maps, and also at that time visiting the Arrow Line, which is a 9-mile train that goes it's on a 9-mile track that goes from Redlands University to downtown San Bernardino, and to learn about how they got that done. And actually, Esri played a strong role in that. It was a lot of information that will help us as we go forward. The mayor and I and many members of the Palm Desert team got to meet with our Congressman Ken Calvert, who, by the way, has been great in facilitating meetings between Union Pacific and RCTC on the CV Rail. But in our meeting with the Congressman, we got to talk to him about some of our needs for the city, some of the projects we have, and he explained to us much of the opportunities we have and how he can help us. And I did go to Tools for Tomorrow, which is a nonprofit that brings the arts to our schools. And with them having been cut out of so many of our schools, it's great to have an organization that brings it to our students. And they do serve a number of elementary schools in Palm Desert. So it was great to be part of that, to support them in that they support our students. And that's it.
Thank you so much. I also have a few things to bring up. This week's Chamber of Commerce breakfast, we learned that our cybersecurity seminar will be happening on May 14th. This is an opportunity for small businesses to learn about how to protect themselves from cyber attacks, from phishing, and all of the scams that could be devastating to small businesses. The Braille Institute presented the free services that they have for individuals with low vision or no vision that they offer free of cost. And right now they have a program targeting first responders in particular. One of the other presenters or guests that was there was the Desert Guide Dogs. And it was great to learn from them the process of training a dog, and that yes, you do eventually give that dog to a family, but you receive the training and skills to be a better canine parent moving forward. The McCallum is now engaging with all of the Palm Desert elementary schools. They've expanded the programs they're offering. The choreography contest, the applications are now open until April 1st. We have the dates for open call. That's Saturday, April 20th and Sunday, the 21st. If you want to go and check out our local talent, it's really remarkable. Different kinds of acts from different ages. And let's see, this coming Monday, I will be attending the State of District 4th, which is being put on by our county supervisor. And of course, we can't go without sharing that we will be having our worldly known El Paseo Fashion Week and the Food and Wine Fest. The Coffee with the Mayor will be coming up at the Jocelyn Center on March 20th at 9 in the morning. We had a very successful Coffee with the Mayor at Lincoln Elementary. We packed the room and brought extra chairs, and we're looking at a date for Saturday, I believe, Saturday the 13th in April. So we hope that you can attend. And let's see, yesterday I attended a meeting with Josh Friday, who's the Chief Services Officer for Governor Newsom's California Service Corps programs. And that is something that we need to let our youth know. And I hope that maybe we can present some of that info to put on our website, where youth can earn, in exchange for some of their community service, $10,000. And through the Climate Corps, $10,000 to $30,000 as a workforce development initiative. And that is the recap of what I have. And I think that that is, anything else we left off? Okay, thank you so much. After that, now we move on to number 12, non-agenda public comments. Do we have a guidance, Mr. City Clerk?
Yes, for those on Zoom, if you want to participate in public comment, please click the raise hand button on your computer or smartphone. If you're calling in by on your phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. And when called upon, press *6 to unmute yourself. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes and begin by stating your name. In addition, the City Council, this time has been set aside for the public to address the City Council on issues that are not on the agenda for up to 3 minutes. Speakers may utilize one of the 3 options listed on the agenda. Because of the Brown Act, the City Council, because of the Brown Act does not allow the City Council to act on items listed on the agenda, members may briefly respond or refer to the matter to staff for a report.
Thank you very much. I have 3 cards here. One of them is for a non-agenda comment, which is we will be taking now. And 2 of the cards are for items that are further in the agenda. So we will take those at the time that we call those agenda items forward. Right now, will Ms. Barbara Wasserberg please join us?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Have you ever heard of the term the Great Reset? Well, it is here. It is the top-down reorganization of the world economy by a cabal of technocratic globalists led by Klaus Schwab, who is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum and the visionary of the plan called the Great Reset, also known as the United Nations Agenda 2030. This is not a future proposal. It has been implemented right here in Palm Desert at the local level. The insane lockdowns for fake viruses have been one of their hottest achievements, and very controlled game of shifting global capital flows into a select group of approved corporate stocks and bonds is one of the most dangerous shifts of our capital in at least the past century. The recipe for a worldwide technocratic management system that, if everything goes according to their plan, the world will be guided by artificial intelligence, and the automation will outpace and outperform human abilities in numerous sectors. The global public-private partnership that was formalized in June of 2019 with the signing of the United Nations and World Economic Forum's strategic partnership, the United Nations has been quietly building power for decades, and through agreements such as Agenda 2030, has become a sovereign power unto itself. This shadow global government seeks to regulate every dimension of our lives. Their various agreements and goals seek to centrally dictate the world's economy, migration, reproductive health, monetary systems, digital IDs, environment, agriculture, wages, climate modification, One World Health, and other related globalist programs. Their tentacles reach far and wide, and their nefarious aim is to transform the world into becoming a one world government. This all works together in the Great Reset grid of total surveillance and control. Many of you might ask, what is she talking about? I have never heard of the Great Reset. If you look on the City of Palm Desert's website, many of their plans and projects are part of the United Nations Agenda 2030, implemented at the local level. They also use different terminology. That is not a mistake. The government likes to change the language and use flowery, benevolent language to hide their past, current, and future plans in their participation of this reset. If anyone would like more information on the subject or where to find the information regarding this, I would be happy to provide that for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Westberg. Mr. Clerk, I do have a question for you. One of the speaker cards that is referencing some of the agenda items does reference number 11. Is that something you would like to take now as a public comment and proceed to the others, or?
No, Madam Mayor, item 11 is not an actionable item, and so in my opinion, there's no need to take public comment on that item. But she
Thank
could, of course, incorporate it in her comments when she comes up.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify for procedure. We will,
And Madam Mayor, we do have an additional speaker on Zoom,
thank you.
Mr. Daryl Terrell.
Hi, I apologize for not being here. My name is Daryl Terrell, and I'm not speaking to you as a City of Moreno Valley Planning Commissioner, but a Moreno Valley resident. I want to talk to you about catalytic converter theft. I want you guys to recall why this state law AB 641 catalytic converter was created in the first place. Law enforcement agencies in cities and counties up and down our state found it nearly impossible to investigate catalytic converter thefts because the stolen converters do not have any identifying marking, which can be used to identify victims of the theft. Without a victim, our deputies cannot arrest and suspected thieves for merely possession of a converter that appears to be stolen, which current state law lacks. That's why our county and cities, including Eastvale, Norco, Corona, Moreno Valley, Temecula, Beaumont, Banning, Palm Springs, Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs have adopted their own ordinance that is stronger than state law AB 6041 to make it a crime to merely possess a single converter, unlike the state law, which makes anyone who possesses 9 or more converters an automotive dismantler and classified as a license violator. So AB 641 has become nothing but a licensure and penalty scheme only for those deemed automotive dismantlers who fail to operate their business in accordance to the state law. In essence, having too many converters will make someone a dismantler subject to the statute, but that's all. The statute does not penalize the mere possession. That's why I'm here to ask, I'm not there, but I'm asking you to join our county and other cities in considering adopting a county ordinance that's stronger than state law that will hold these thieves accountable, unlike the state law, in creating a unified of enforcement that will cross city limits. So this whole thing is, state law says you got to have 9, but what if a person has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5? A deputy can't do anything about it because they have to have more than 9. But if you have 1, that means you're done. It's a probable cause for our deputies to arrest these people. It's time for us to come together and show the state of California, especially the politicals in Sacramento, how we hold criminals accountable. So I'm just asking you guys to consider adopting an ordinance like other cities have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terrell. I appreciate your comments. At this point, we will move on to the consent calendar. Seeing that we have a public speaker requesting item 13B, I would like to request a motion moving the other items with the exception of 13D.
I'll move the balance as presented.
I'll second that. Sorry.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 13B is the approval of warrants. who will be presenting on that item, or?
Madam Mayor, I believe we would just take the public comment and then see if council has any follow-up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Will Rebecca step forward, please, to address item 13B?
Yes. Hi, how's everyone doing today? How you doing, Jan? How's Rachel doing? Did she move back home or is she still in San Francisco?
Let's just stick to city business.
Oh,
We'll stick
okay.
to the people's.
All right.
business.
Well, I mean, I was looking up your guys' bio and we seem to have a lot of correlations in the desert. I've been at Sacred Heart, been to Palm Desert. I've been in this community my entire life. And there is a huge public safety issue going on and it's being ignored. And for some reason, this city is sponsoring this to happen. Now, the juvenile court in Indio, the Superior Court, the Larson Justice Center, 30% of that income comes from juvenile court and families. I've been kept from my children since April 7th of 2022. They were taken without a legal and lawful warrant. I wasn't given an opportunity to go to a hearing. I wasn't given an opportunity to be heard. I was at the hospital. My family was taking care of my children, and they were going to school and daycare in the valley for several months. None of this documentation has been listened to. And you might direct me to go to a social worker or go to a different division. I have gone to every division in the last 2 years in California, in this district, with the local assembly members and the people running for Congress, and nobody can give me a straight answer on why it is impossible for mothers who are not being prosecuted or charged for a criminal crime are being separated from their children and told they have no right to ever return. This needs to be brought up. I mean, it's a division that's happening in the city and it gets deferred to Indio. I've been a Palm Desert resident my entire life. My daughter was born at Palm Springs. My son was born in Orange County, but my daughter remains in the system. I do not get to have any phone calls, any visitation, any birthdays, any holidays, any religious practices, any medical decisions, any educational activities. I get to be involved with nothing. And I have not done anything wrong. Now, am I a perfect human being? No. A lot of the mothers who have their children taken are not perfect human beings. Some of us end up calling the police and later get referred to by the local county police to Children's Services Division, and then they take our children. So when we call the local agencies that are supposed to be enforcing law, we end up getting our families taken apart and be told, go to court, be patient, just follow the social worker, follow the law. Where does the law start and where does it end when it is impossible to have civil rights and children have no advocates for years? And state complaints can go to the bar, the governor, the attorney general, the mayors, and to the Superior Court presiding judge.
It breaks my heart to say your 3 minutes are up, but I would love to meet with you after this. I really would like to continue this conversation, but our process is for 3 minutes. But if I would love for you to stick around after, if that's okay.
Okay, so if I'm done speaking, would anybody like to ask me any questions? Because this is a severity in our community. And every mother who is torn from their children is affecting the community. It affects the community in our schools, in our healthcare, in everything, in
Our
our service.
limitation is that we can't engage in items that are not on the agenda, because it then would create opportunities for people to not be heard on both sides. That's why I said I would love to have that additional time with you on the side. Does that make sense?
Yes, it
Okay.
does. But the thing is
I
that it
appreciate
is
you.
a city
I
problem.
I
and it's-
appreciate you. And afterwards, I would
Thank
love
you,
to
Mayor.
I truly
appreciate-
do. As a
okay.
mom, I truly
I'd like
do
to
want
do a
speak with you.
closing then if I'm done.
We
because
can't. We can't.
We can't. Okay, so
cannot.
I will
We've
make a
gone
last
past our 3
statement
minutes.
that I
We have gone past our 3 minutes and I
Okay.
greatly appreciate you and we'll meet with you after. Please, please. Thank you. What is our next item? Now that we have passed the consent calendar, now we move on.
We
Madam-
need to move item 13B, which
you.
I will do.
And
Now
I'll second. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Are we voting? Yep.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. Now that we have passed the consent calendar, we can move on to item number 14, the action calendar. Item 14A authorizes the city manager to award library furniture, fixtures, finishes, and equipment contracts to multiple vendors to outfit the new library located at 73300 Fred Waring Drive in the amount not to exceed $650,000.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. Gary Schaefer, Director of Library Services. Could I have my first slide, please? Thank you. As you are well aware, the city will be taking over library services from the County of Riverside. The current library will close on April 30 as a county library and reopen after a light refresh as a city-run municipal library. Next slide, please. The refresh will include paint, wall, and window graphics, new carpeting in the community room, and new flooring in the lobby area, some new equipment, reupholstery of some furniture, and new furniture, all of which has been selected. And for the record, over 47% of the furniture is CMAS or OMNIA eligible, and many of the rest of the furniture has similar discounts. As far as timing, if I could get the next slide, please. As far as timing, we've issued RFPs for the furniture and reupholstery. And today we are asking for you to authorize the city manager to enter into contracts with approved city vendors who have competed for the award so that we may order and meet our soft reopening date of July 1st. Staff is planning a grand reopening in mid-August as school comes back into session. Next slide, please. How we got here. I would be remiss if I did not thank the Library Task Force, our council member liaisons, and nearly all, if not every staff member of the city. We held community input sessions and launched a survey to gauge what residents would like to see in the library. I would like to note that we will work with existing vendors, RFPs for paint, carpet, and flooring installation. Next slide. Here we have the floor plan. I realize it's a bit of an eye chart, but I would like to highlight a few of the spaces. When you first walk into the library, the kind of pink area to the left, you will find the city's visitor center, new books for checkout, and eventually a retail sales area, as well as an engaging activity area and help desk. The green area above that and to the right of the pink is the family area, full of easy readers, board books, chapter books, along with activities for children. Immediately adjacent and kind of up from there is a space that we probably won't be open upon opening, but we will definitely in the first year convert that into a sound space recording lab, kind of podcast center. And then adjacent next over is the patio area, which we want to give a total refresh to make it just a much more active area when summer heat subsides. To the left of that is our quiet reading zone, study rooms, veteran services room, and the rest of the spaces include teen space, exploration hub, and community room. Next slide. These next two slides feature some of the colors, finishes, and furniture that we plan to make use of in the space. So if we can go through that slide and then the following, so you can kind of get a feel for the new space. And that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions, comments?
Thank you, Gary. Excellent. Looking forward to this, of course. And I just want to clarify, or this may be better directed to Todd, the $650,000 is money that's already been set aside. So this is not coming from general fund or being pulled anywhere from anywhere else.
The money was pulled in. It was our money. It was basically escrowed with the county. If I understand that correctly, we had actually two sources with the county. One was a improvement fund that we had set up. There was another one for the building fund and about $4 million. We pulled both of those back. We've also done a $1 million appropriation from the reserves in order to get them started for the next year. So the money has been approved by this council to be spent. This is an unusual way of purchasing. We will acknowledge that. We are getting short on time. He's running into logistical issues. So we'd like to get your authority to go ahead and spend the money, purchase it. We'll come back to you with a reconciliation when we're done.
Perfect. Thank you.
I thank you that you guys have done great work. I've heard a lot of good things from the community, and if that is it, move it along.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all very much.
Seeing that we have very little left and a public comment or a public hearing, I will be requesting from my peers a 5-minute or 10-minute break. Okay, we need to stretch. And okay, let's do 10. Thank you. It is 5:12 or 4:12 now. Daylight savings got me. Oh, 5:11. We'll come back at 5:21. Thank you so much. I hope you were all able to enjoy a little stretch break there. Now that we have gone through consent item A, we will now continue on item, wait, that was the only one A. We've got the 2 public hearings. So now we have public hearings. I declare the public hearing open for item 15A, introduction of an ordinance to adopt a notice of exemption under CEQA and approve a change of zone 24-0001 to change zoning designation for the properties located at 73-600 Alessandro Drive from Downtown Edge Transition Overlay to Downtown Edge.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Nick Maloney with the Development Services Department Planning Division. I'll be presenting this item. The item for your consideration is a request to change the zoning designation of the property located at 73-600 Alessandro Drive from Downtown Edge Transition Overlay to Downtown Edge. This is a legislative action, and the City Council's decision would be final. This item was presented to the Planning Commission in February and was recommended for approval. So you'll be considering the change of zone as well as the adoption of a notice of exemption in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Here's a vicinity map showing the general location of the parcel. It is actually comprised of 2 separate APNs located at the northeast corner of San Carlos Avenue and Alessandro Drive. As you can see, the site is developed with an existing multi-use building. This building was previously approved in about 2014 for a pet spa with multiple uses, which are now considered legal non-conforming. And this is the floor plan provided of that previous approval, showing the distribution of the uses throughout the site. Staff has analyzed the proposed change of zone and determined that it would be consistent with the underlying general plan designation, which is Downtown City Center. It would be consistent with the development standards. It would not generate any nonconformities for the building, as well as enable existing allowable uses to operate within the building. And in terms of CEQA analysis, it is consistent with the general plan, and no environmental impacts are anticipated or have any, there's no reasonable expectation that any impacts would occur. This is a table just summarizing the general businesses that were previously located and how the change of zone would affect if they're permitted or not. And as you can see, they all would be, and conformance with the development standards. With that, staff recommends that the City Council or the Planning Commission recommends that the City Council approve the change of zone as presented. And that concludes staff presentation. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Would you prefer the public comment come now or after council member comments?
Now, if possible. Yeah.
Perfect. We have a comment from Sean Krejci. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. I'm just a concerned citizen about this, not quite understanding. I actually own the property, literally next door to his or to this building. My back fence is, I've lived there for 3 years now. I'm a full-time resident all year round. I know that the property that's owned on Alessandro, she owns quite a few properties in that area. I know she's been planned to develop other things in the past, and we've been approached to be purchased, but we wanted to live there. But more importantly, the reason I bring this up is that after we moved in, we didn't realize that there was a sex offender rehab literally across the street from this building, and it's gone now. But if this is approved, would this open up that opportunity to open another rehab? Would this open up the opportunity for it to be used for other than just commercial spaces, which is concerning to us as we literally live directly behind it? So that's my only concern, and that's all I wanted to say. I don't have any pros or cons to it. I just want to make sure however it is used with this being approved, that is done in good taste and it's not going to affect the neighborhood or the community. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments, questions, concerns from my peers?
I just wonder if staff could address the gentleman's question about whether this change would invite presence of sexual rehabilitation.
To address the gentleman's question, the general type of use that that other operation would fall under as a land use classification would be office, which would be currently allowed at that location. The change of zone would have no further bearing or impact on that.
So the change being proposed tonight does not affect that issue.
No, not directly.
Any other comments?
Just a general comment. If my colleagues visited this location when it was first opened, it offered spa-type services, and the intention of the owner is to continue subletting space for similar purposes, which seems entirely consistent with our original approvals. It is good for the neighborhood to have some use of the building so it doesn't attract mischief. And I understand from staff's presentation that this change is necessary because of technical restrictions in the current zoning. So I would certainly favor its approval to allow uses that are a constructive occupancy for the building.
I also would like to add to that as well, that part of some of the proposed businesses that will go there are, for example, massage therapy, and those are very regulated. Not only are there state regulations, but the city has also implemented where they can be. I absolutely relate to wanting to be sure that your home is safe, that the neighborhood that you want to walk is safe. And I appreciate you taking the time to come by and share your concerns. And I hope that our staff has answered that question for you. Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion passes 5-0.
Having finished public hearing A, we advance to public hearing 15B. The introduction of an ordinance to adopt a notice of exemption under CEQA and adopt a zoning ordinance amendment to implement residential and mixed-use objective design standards.
Okay, thank you once again. Nick Maloney with the Development Services Department. I'm joined by our consultants, John Kaliski and Ami Bott of John Kaliski Architects of Los Angeles, California, who assisted in the preparation of the item being considered this evening, which are the objective design standards. Before delving into it, we'll address the why of having objective design standards. So the state of California has passed laws which are aimed at accelerating housing production within the state of California, and have passed a number of pieces of legislation in recent years to accomplish this. One of the means by which it aims to accomplish this is by limiting the local agencies' discretion over what they can and cannot regulate with regard to certain housing development, namely multifamily, affordable and supportive and transitional housing, and limiting the city's ability to impose discretionary review processes when it comes to design review, and requiring that cities establish objective standards when reviewing these projects. Two such examples of these laws are shown here on the slide, and that includes SB 330, the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, which, among other things, requires that cities cannot impose or enforce non-objective design standards, and establish that cities can only deny approval of a project if it does not comply with any written objective standards. SB 35 is another example of a project which requires the city to approve and review qualifying residential projects through a a staff action rather than taking it through public hearings before Planning Commission or the City Council or the Architecture Review Commission. In that process, the city can only review housing projects based on its compliance with written objective standards. Currently and historically, the city of Palm Desert has relied on discretionary review process and design review through the city's Architectural Review Commission or conditional use permits. And state law does not allow us to continue doing that. It's necessary to establish these non-discretionary review procedures because these are the one tool that the state has left for us to impose requirements and regulate the design of housing developments. If the city does not adopt objective design standards, it can be compelled by the state law to approve projects which may be inconsistent or incompatible in Palm Desert. And this is the one tool that the state allows the city to have. So the item that we're bringing for your consideration is a zoning ordinance amendment to adopt these objective design standards, or ODS for short. This is a city-initiated effort. It's funded by a grant through the state, and it will add a new chapter to the city zoning ordinance to implement the objective design standards in several chapters within Title 25. It will also adopt the objective design standards booklet, which will go into some detail in this presentation, as well as adopt a notice of exemption in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. So what are objective design standards? These are standards used by an agency to regulate new development in the community. They're standards which generally do not involve any personal or subjective judgment by a public official, city staff, or a developer proposing development. They are uniformly verifiable by a reference to an external and uniform benchmark or criterion, and that is the state definition. And there's for example, there's a design booklet that is made publicly available that a developer could reference to find what the standards are. There's many types of objective standards, which include zoning and development standards, which might regulate building height, size, setbacks. But the standards being considered tonight are focused more so on architectural design and regulate the appearance of buildings and development. I'll just go back. So just for an example of what a non-objective standard, which we currently use, is listed on there, and that is building facades should provide architectural interest. That's a standard that is subjective. It's there's a lot of room for interpretation, and it's the type of standard that state law says we cannot impose. Alternative objective standards that examples of those are included at the bottom of this page. As you can see, it's very specific and direct in achieving the goal of identifying the standard that it's trying to regulate. In the development of these objective standards, it started with an analysis of existing conditions and the general plan as the basis for each of the standards, as well as community engagement sessions, which were held through 2023. We went out to the community, met with stakeholders, including residents, held interviews with developers who had been through the design review process with ARC, just to understand their experiences, as well as other local organizations like the Desert Valley Builders Association to gain their input. We took the feedback we received from those initial sessions and held further study sessions with the Architectural Review Commission, Planning Commission, and the City Council to help hone and shape those development standards, which resulted in the draft document and ordinance presented before you. So I'll just touch on a couple of notes here. So these standards are based on state law, and they would apply to certain housing developments, multifamily, transitional, and supportive housing based on the requirements of state law. They would apply in the zones that are listed on the screen here, which are any zone that applies or that allows for residential development, with the exception of the downtown areas within the 111 Development Code, which will be addressed separately. And generally, if a project all of these projects would be subject to these requirements. If a project does not meet a certain standard, or if a developer or project proponent wishes to propose an alternative which doesn't meet the objective design standards, they can choose to go through the Architectural Review Commission still for consideration, and that'll still be a discretionary process, but it would be dependent on the developer's decision at that point. This would not apply retroactively, meaning existing developments that have been approved, have entitlement approval, are going through permitting, filed a preliminary application subject to SB 330. Those would not be subject to these standards. And just to reiterate, these would not apply to the areas of the downtown, which is along El Paseo, Highway 111. Those will be handled separately under a separate set of objective design standards, which will be we'll embark upon later. That concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to John to go over some of the details of the standards and any questions that you may have on that.
Thank you, Nick. Oh, I get to do that. Will be hard. Good afternoon, council members and mayor. Thank you for having us here. As Nick said, the standards themselves, the booklet that goes along with this action today, is broken into 4 key sections with 4 key themes that we organize the objective design standards around. Objective design standards related to overall site development, to landscape, to architecture, and to parking. When you open up the booklet and you read it, this is kind of what you typically see, a section, and within the section, you see a series of written standards, which are then illustrated with diagrams, pictures, sometimes tables. Those are really there to help make clearer how you interpret the standard. So we tried to make them as visual as possible in order to make them as easy as possible to implement, both for applicants as well as for staff. With regard to site objective design standards, I don't think I'm going to read what I wrote. I'll just try to remember it. The goal was really to get the sites to be oriented to the public realm, to not have sites completely internalized, looking into themselves and having no connection. So for instance, the site standards also try to limit the gross size of projects. We don't want projects to be too big, but we have parameters in there which still try to recognize what developers want to do to not make them too restrictive so that every project becomes a discretionary project. We do have some parameters, which I know there have been some questions about. We're certainly happy to answer those. But in general, the idea was to impose a kind of block scale that if you exceeded it, you needed to provide a minimum break of open to the sky space that could be reserved for building separation and to ensure that there would be more of a texture of smaller scales. In terms of orientation, we concentrated a lot on the frontages more than anything else. Our general objective was that if the frontages have a sense of quality to it, that's what the public experience is, that's what the city experience is. And so we have a lot of standards that really talk about how to create diverse and interesting frontages along projects. One of the things that we did was we included a provision for what might be described as small pockets of landscape that were potentially organized for passive enjoyment. And the idea there was to sort of make sure that projects were permeable from the inside to the outside and created variety for people who are enjoying the public realm. Those got larger in terms of what was required as the projects get larger in terms of frontage. And as you know, once you get outside of the downtown, you have some fairly large tracts of land. And so the idea was to break down the uniformity of those frontages and introduce more variety within them. We have standards in that regard for fences, walls, and we also require a certain amount of the buildings, dependent upon the overall size of the project, to be directly related to the frontage. So we acknowledge that sometimes buildings will be set back quite a distance from the frontage, but at the same time, we try to bring some of the larger projects up close so that they can have connectivity to the public realm. Landscape is an important component of what we felt was important to introduce. Traditional design standards, and I think when the state wrote those objectives, they weren't necessarily thinking of landscape per se, but in a place like Palm Desert, the landscape is a lot of what you experience and enjoy. It's not a, traditional urban environment in that sense. So we do have these landscape objective design standards which build upon some of the work that the city has already done and implemented. We have requirements for canopy trees. We don't really say exactly how you have to place them, but the idea is to ensure along the frontages there is shade along the sidewalks that the city is requiring to be put in. The irregularity of that, still with a 30-foot center, was built upon input that we got from the Planning Commission. We've got a whole series of canopy tree types that are specifically related to the type of desert landscape that exists here, so that over time, as this is implemented, that landscape which is connected to this place will emerge more and more as projects are built out. We also require, as part of the landscape provisions, the provision of active amenities at projects. This would particularly be related to larger projects to ensure that there are a variety of opportunities to make sure that projects are built with amenities in them. Those include active water amenities, again, a component that we were encouraged to build into the objective design standards by the Planning Commission. And again, I know there were some questions about that, which have been addressed, I think, in some supplemental materials that were provided to you before the meeting. In terms of architecture itself, clearly an important component. Again, the goal was really to get the architecture to connect to the public realm more than anything else. There are standards which build upon some of the height standards that already exist within the city, but try to acknowledge some of the complexities that the public came to us and told us about. There were folks who told us about, well, you have these height standards, but they don't acknowledge the fact that sometimes the land moves up and then all of a sudden the 30 feet or whatever it is measured from the higher point. How do we do that so people can't take advantage of being, next to our lower intensity residential communities? So we have various standards in there that try to acknowledge that the key datum point is the back of sidewalk, really, more than the elevation of how the wind may have driven up the sand on a site. Those apply both to the front of properties as well as to the rear of properties to ensure that people don't take advantage of a property changing a certain distance from a public street and being able to get their building to all of a sudden pop up an extra 4 or 5 feet because the last 20 feet of a property happens to be higher as opposed to the front of the property. We also have transitional height requirements in relationship to single-family zoned lands to ensure that there's a minimum sense of mitigation between what generally is a one-story environment and sometimes with these multifamily or mixed-use projects, a higher environment. Parking is critical. Most of the parking in Palm Desert that we see outside of the downtown and even to a certain extent in the downtown is surface parking. So we wanted to call that out to make sure that the parking lots were high-quality environments. We have criteria for the number of trees, the percentage of landscaping that needs to occur. We got very constructive input, again, from the Planning Commission, members of the Architectural Review Group, which we built into the standards so that hopefully these surface parking standards create amenitized environments that are delightful to be in. And finally, we have taken every single objective design standard that's in this document. We've put it into a checklist. The checklist will obviously be available to applicants before they ever even come into the project. They'll know exactly what the city is expecting from them. They can fill the checklist out themselves and say, here's how we comply. But it also provides a tool for staff to go through and look at a project and basically in a fairly binary way say, yes, you comply. Yes, you comply. No, you don't comply. Fix this, and we can approve the project ministerially. As Nick mentioned, if somebody's really committed to an idea that doesn't comply with the objective design standards, there still is an alternate path to have a project approved. They just have to go through the architectural review group. So in conclusion, before I turn it over back to Nick, the objective design standards are a formative design toolbox, both for applicants and staff, that seek to implement a framework of best Palm Desert design practices for multifamily and mixed-use projects. Nick?
And then for this portion, earlier this morning, we did receive some comments and questions from city council members, which are summarized in a memorandum, which is included in your file. So we can go over those in detail, but just wanted to touch on a couple of the key considerations and how we've responded to certain comments. One comment was regarding standard 3.9.3, which is regarding the number of active amenities as well as the categories. We've received comments and we've re-examined the standard, and this slide summarizes the proposed change that we would do. We've adjusted the categories based on the size of the multifamily project based on the number of dwellings, and then adjusted how that amenity breakdown would go. We've generally across the board increased the number of amenities required by 1. And then when you exceed 150 dwelling units, we've changed that increment to be based on every 15 dwelling units requiring an additional amenity rather than the 100. So that's the change on this one. We did receive a couple of comments regarding this standard, which is the building wall length, which was proposed at 425 feet. The general concern that we heard was that that is a long length, and we are open to adjusting that based on the city council's preference. Generally, what we see within approved and existing developments is a length that runs anywhere between 100 foot at the minimum on the long end up to 300 foot. And we would suggest some type of happy medium within that range to account for the range of potential housing types that would occur. So perhaps 225, 250 feet, but of course, based on council direction. Another consideration was regarding this particular standard, which is the requirement for a 30-foot open to the sky break between buildings located along a frontage. The comment that we received was to examine potentially increasing that to 50 foot. Staff's intent in this was to establish a minimum that generally fell within a range of what we see existing developments following, as well as also encouraging a space that could be used as usable open space containing paseos, landscaped areas, or if necessary, a drive to access the site. And that is a minimum. It could increase as needed or as proposed, but one thought was that by widening it, it might open it up more for use as parking rather, but generally the recommendation would be to go with a 30-foot as a minimum, but we'd be open to the council direction on that as well. And then one of the other considerations was regarding the location of where parking could be placed. The standards 5.1 and 5.1.2 established that parking would need to be screened and not be located in front of buildings in areas where it would be visible from the street. But based on council, we should acknowledge that there are some situations where that may not work. So staff would recommend that council direct us to add an alternative additional standard to establish design standards whereby the parking could be located in front of a building with screening that is appropriate. So providing a more specific type of standard, which could be performance-based, dependent on the lot width. But we can put something together and add it into the standards for those to come back during second reading. And I didn't create a slide for it, but there was another comment about building modulation. One of the standards includes a menu option of 11 different strategies to modulate a building. What was proposed was to use 2 out of the 11. And some of the feedback we heard was to increase that to 4, so we can also incorporate that as that comes back. And then on this last slide, just for future considerations, the objective design standards that are being presented to you today deal primarily with qualitative and architectural design elements of building design, but there are other objective standards which may need to be put in place for development standards, subdivision and grading standards, because the general trend that we would expect to see is that the state would only allow cities to impose objective standards, and to better implement standards or regulate projects, we would recommend in future times to incorporate as many objective standards as possible in future ordinance amendments. With that, staff would recommend incorporating the changes that were presented and giving us direction on that, and then passing the item to second reading. That concludes my presentation. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Do you want questions before public comment?
Yes, if we could take public comment first. I have nobody on Zoom.
We have 3 comment cards here, but none of them are addressing item 15B.
Thank you. I want to be crystal clear when I leave about which things have been changed. So may I just confirm that staff's current proposal includes the modified version of table 3.9.3, increasing the required amenities?
Yes.
And also includes the increase from 2 to 4 in building modulation options.
Yes.
And then staff is offering to come back with an added option to deal with frontage facing parking, if that's the direction of council after discussion.
Yes, to incorporate into the second reading. Yes.
And you're also looking for discussion about the building length and break length between buildings.
Yes, that's correct. For those 2 standards, what council's direction would be, yes.
On that topic, this is my question. If we impose a building length, maximum building length of 250 feet and a gap length of 50 feet, and a proposal comes along which staff deems to be a fantastic proposed development, but it only works for them if the gap is 45 feet. Do I understand correctly that it's still possible for that project to move forward with an exception?
It would have to go through the Architectural Review Commission for consideration for both, if that becomes a standard.
So there's a process for that to be approved if conditions seem to warrant it.
Yes.
That was a really hesitant yes. Is it yes?
Yes.
Well, can I follow up on his response? I have a
Yes.
question. So in staff's opinion, this last requirement of council, what does staff think about that suggestion from council? Is staff lukewarm on it, thinking, I don't know if we like this?
We're very supportive, certainly of the building, the length. There may be, the spacing is a lot compared to what we've seen of existing multifamily developments. But if it's the direction, we can support that, yes.
Those were my only questions.
Did you have something to think?
Under council members Kelly's scenario, if we don't follow our own objective standards, if we allow for some discretion and variation, does that open us up to the state coming down and saying, hey, you're going back to the old days where you're using discretion and subjectivity versus objective standards? And do we then open ourselves up to liability from the state?
We have been brought in on calls by a developer already in front of, with, I believe it was HCD, Nick. And basically they bring you in and moderate it for you. So that's why this is so important, is that this exercise couldn't be more important, because if they can't provide that checklist and standards there, if they appeal to HCD, they'll just override us.
My question is in regards to my comment first off is in regards to that gap for parking. I think that's wonderful. As we know, sometimes more families are living together, multi-generational. We want somewhere for them to park and not be in sight. I think what you've done is wonderful in getting a very complex sentiment of how to move people forward. But I do have a question when you said that let me go back to my notes, a sense of quality. By calling something a sense of, doesn't that go back to the same issue that we were trying to avoid? And that was when, right at the beginning, when John was mentioning the standard booklets that creates the guidelines. The first was orientation, the second is frontage requirements that create a sense of quality.
I think what we're saying is that, and it relates directly to your comments as well, this work is basically trying to take the input that the community has made, that is in the general plan, that we've gotten from the Planning Commission, the Architectural Review Committee, and the City Council, and saying you are defining what quality is in your community. And to the maximum extent feasible, we're trying to write measurable, quantifiable standards that in some, not necessarily each one individually, but in some start to torque projects to start doing certain things. Like you could have said to us that we really want everything, like the example that you brought up on the parking lots in relationship to frontage. I mean, we could have an interesting intellectual conversation about why that's the way we presented it made sense, the way you're reacting to it makes sense. But the bottom line is, as a community, you're saying that quality for us includes potentially the ability for there to be certain types of parking lots between the primary frontage of a building and a street. But if you do that, you need to meet these landscape requirements, i.e. a certain setback, a certain amount of trees within a parking lot, those trees to basically be picked from a list that the city maintains of tree types that are appropriate to this landscape. So the sum of this is in essence the definition of your quality. So that's the way I would answer that.
Perfect. That's it. And speaking of trees, I did see, and I'm always going to hark on this, that whenever anyone talks about the Palo Verde, specifically the Desert Museum, it is a hybrid tree. That's the one that gets knocked over with heavy winds. It's a hybrid that grows quickly and has a more hollow trunk. And that's a big no-no as far as I'm concerned. We don't want anyone to end up having any damage to what they've worked so hard to meet the objectives.
I can't remember what we did with that right this second. What did we do with that? Did we keep it in or take it out? It's in there,
It's
but
still
we
in there, yeah.
expanded the list, I think.
Yeah.
From the original time we presented it.
Well, it's fine if it expands. I would just prefer that that one not be there as a safety issue.
I think the best thing for me to say is I've heard that and we did talk to our landscape architect about it. They weren't quite as concerned about it as you are, which is probably why we left it in here. But again, if council directs us to take it out, it can be taken out. I'm not going to resist.
Perfect. Yes, as mentioned, that would be my preference. Do you have something else? Thank you.
So thank you for answering all my questions. As I'm listening to you, I realize how important our Architectural Review Commission is. Because they have a lot of say in much of this. One of the things that it was repetitive in what I questioned was the building modulation, the canyonization issue really concerns me. And as you said, we would have a separate set of guidelines for El Paseo or objective standards. But I just want to make sure we don't have those plain monolithic buildings. And I look at some of the pictures, and I even saw in some of the previous edits is that they had blown up some of the pictures so you could see more clearly what they are. And it concerns me that so many of the pictures are just these monolithic looking buildings. And that does concern me. Now, I saw that you had addressed some of the issues about modulation, and I feel much better about that. But it's just something that it's on my mind, and we want some interest and some people living in beautiful residences, certainly. The grading, and I know the building height is measured from the public streets. So you had talked about grading and objective design standards with grading and elevation. Might we wind up with something where somebody has a high level or a higher level, it's not street, and they put a brick wall on top of that? I mean, does this kind of address that? Do we have that addressed in this?
Yeah, so the standard regarding the way height is measured, it's within 150 feet of a street frontage extending back from that front property line. The height is measured from the height of the existing street curb or wherever that curb would be. So if it steps up, that would eat into the ultimate height,
And I
which would still
saw that, but I just got concerned when you mentioned grading.
This does not directly address objective grading standards. Again, this is specific to architectural design standards.
Okay. And then on one of the answers, we did talk about screening for parking. So thank you for addressing that. And if we can just have, it says in here, the combination of solid walls and landscaping with the building setback further from the street to allow some room for parking area and a drive lane. You want to establish specific details for how this would occur. And I just want to make sure that we don't, that's one of those nice things when you can move a house back from a street or a building. Sometimes it makes sense to have some parking in front as long as it is done with some aesthetic sensitivity.
It would allow that as an option.
Okay, and then I asked about the Washingtonian Robusta, especially after all the wind we've had. We've seen the fallout from that. And it said staff can add an explicit prohibition of all invasive, noxious, and nuisance plant species and landscape plants to the document. And I think that would be great if we did that.
Right, again, and those are already prohibited in any new developments.
Okay, so is it necessary? Is it redundant or?
It's thorough.
Okay, because I see where you said the invasive and noxious, and so I don't know if that's in the other one. If it is, great. That's terrific. So again, thank you for answering all my questions about this. I was too concerned about the length of the building when I did a quick little Google search. I probably should have spent a little more time on it, but it said a city block is 311 feet long. And then when we were looking at the length of these buildings, I thought it sounded huge. So I don't know whether 311 is correct or not, but that's what I got when I did my research. Okay, thank you for all of this. And this is so much work, a tremendous amount of work, and I thank you for it because the aesthetics and the personality of Palm Desert's important to its future. And so I really appreciate all the work that's been done. Thank you.
Mayor, yeah. I want to take a step back from the details for a minute. I sincerely think that this work is some of the most significant work I have seen in my time on council. To assure that moving forward, Palm Desert continues to be a place that we're proud to live and to which we're proud to invite visitors. And I am extremely impressed with the work our consultants did and that our staff has done. So I want to express that appreciation. It's hard to objectify a sense of quality. And I see so many ways in which you've achieved that hard task. So thank you. I think we've heard multiple speakers favor adding a front-facing parking option with adequate protections. I'll always remember what I learned at the study session, that parking is an amenity. So I'm confident you can come up with an additional option that will preserve the aesthetic that we're going for. On the topic of Palo Verde, I've certainly had the same experiences as the mayor. Perhaps it would be most respectful of us before giving final direction on that topic if we could receive in the next staff report a summation of the thinking from the landscape architect who worked on this, so that we know we're getting professional input before we apply our personal experience. So for me, that leaves the topic of the building length. I think in terms I can visualize, 450 feet is 1.5 football fields. And it's hard for me to imagine that our proposed length for objective standards would be 1.5 football fields. So I would certainly suggest to my colleagues that 250 feet would be more in keeping with current buildings, and perhaps spacing of 40 feet if 50 is excessive.
I agree with everything you said, and I am concerned about having that 50 foot versus maybe we do 40. That would be my only comment to add to what you just said.
I have a couple comments, and I do want to talk about, is it the Palo Verde? And it's on the list, and I think it's good it's on the list. And I am certainly open to looking, hearing from many landscape professionals, but there are places that they can be put. If we can keep a nice, long plant palette for people from which to choose, I think we do better. And there are places that those can be put where it's more protected, if it's in a courtyard or something like that. And it's, you've given people options, you're not taking them away from them. And if they put them in a protected, and maybe it's something you have to add a little line that they do better in certain areas. As far as the length, and I tried so hard, that's why I looked up, it's like, okay, that's longer than a city block. I wonder if, in the meantime, I would love to see some of our other buildings. I don't have a great mind's eye for this. And if I could see some buildings that were specific lengths so I could kind of, process it a little, I would really appreciate that before we, stamp it. So if we must have some things we're building now, or some things that would be good illustrations for us to help us understand what that length really means.
I agree, that makes it a lot easier to, we see excellent aerial overlays or renderings that give us that context and the spacing for it. So that's a good suggestion, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments, questions, expressions? Okay.
I'll move the recommendation with the changes that have just been summarized.
One point of clarification, do you want to include the express prohibition on noxious and invasive trees and plants?
I would defer to the staff if it's needed, please. If it is not, if it's just redundancy and a problem, I know it'll be covered.
I believe that, Kathleen, was that consistent with the motion that you made with all of them? Okay, for clarity. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion passes 5-0.
At this time, the public hearing is closed. Do we have any informational items, Mr. Mejia?
No, Madam Mayor.
As the Mayor Pro Tem reminded us, it is Pie Day. Go and enjoy a slice of pie, sugar-free or not, whatever your heart's content may be. Remember to be kind to one another. Remember to share the road. And remember that each day is a blessing. Thank you.